Hello and welcome to the All Humans Are Human podcast, season 5. Welcome to the third episode of the Curiosity Sea series. Today I am very excited to be here with Timothy Russell. Pardon, I was in my head, I was going between Tim and Timothy. We're going to get to that later. And the two wolves inside all of us. He is a tattoo artist, tattooist, depending on your accent. He's an activist. He has a show. I'm going to put all of his information in the description box so you can find him and learn more when you're so inspired to be more curious about Tim after hearing our talking about curiosity. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm honored to be here.
Thank you. Honored to have you. I feel like I kept seeing so many things online from you that I was like, I agree with that. And I agree with that. And I agree with that.
I do be talking a lot of shit online. So,
A
you know,
veteran yapper, as you said, a veteran.
yeah, veteran yapper. That's what we decided was my title, my job description. Yeah, and I've been yapping on the internet for a long time. Yeah, we were just talking beforehand, since back in the days of LiveJournal, through all different iterations of social media. I don't know, I've always just like I've never had much of a gigantic internet following, but I've always been like a person that has like on, like I'll just get on a thing and start talking shit, and then after a while there's like a couple thousand people following me, and then a couple thousand more, whatever. And I don't know why. I think maybe it's just what I say resonates with people on some level. I would like to think so. Maybe people just like to hate follow me. There definitely is some of those. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Must be my unique perspective I bring to the world.
That and you're speaking a unique perspective that's also a shared perspective that a lot of people agree with, that a lot of people wish they had the courage for the next C to be able to put that out, and also things that spark curiosity and conversation about, well, what's going on with this system in government or this system in government, or what's the connection between these governments or between these cultures, or
Yeah.
getting through all
Well,
of
yeah,
the
I do feel like I sit at a intersection of identities that is not often heavily represented online, like being a mixed race working class communist. I mean, like you say all these things now and it's like, oh yeah, there's like a million people on TikTok that are like that. But no, so being so for first time Tim listeners, I'm from New Zealand, or Aotearoa. I'm a mixed race of Pakeha and Maori descent. So Pakeha is like the term for like a European New Zealander, and then Maori, indigenous. You might know us from, I don't know, everyone always just thinks of the tattooed faces and stuff like that. Don't have my face tattooed. Most of the rest of my body is. So yeah, and so yeah, and being from a pretty working class background, and also yeah, I don't know, I've existed on the border of like cultural commentary internet stuff for a while, and like even like media commentary stuff, like people, I don't know, I'm quite interested in a lot of like weird little genre niche things. So I feel like sometimes I'm bringing a perspective to certain things that, like people haven't often heard, like an indigenous person talk about certain kind of I guess like stereotypes and like, like horror movies or something like that before, which is something I tend to do a lot of. Not that cultural commentary is my passion or anything like that. I mean, I think tattooing is my passion, if anything. But when I get online, I am largely focused on. I feel like class struggle is the very like the core of my political kind of uh like that's the core of my praxis, my any kind of activism I do is more focused on, yeah, like material struggle versus, I guess, like, cultural issues, culture war kind of stuff. But we all get sucked in by that.
And they're connected.
Totally.
There's a big overlap between.
Oh, there definitely is. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I mean, there's like, the base and the superstructure and the kind of I think that's like a big thing a lot of people argue about, whether ideology is downstream from material or the opposite way. I definitely think that ideology is formed by material, like the material struggle and the material things leads into, I think, ideology and things. It's I mean, it's a really complicated thing to get into, but
That's what we're here for.
that's
All
the
good. And
yeah,
so
yeah,
many
yeah.
good
That's
things
that's the
are.
guts of it for me. I think that, like, like a lot of people think like, oh, we gotta like Disney's making the woke movies, which makes the world woke, which changes the politics, whereas it's like, no, like, Disney making woke movies is a reaction to the market, like, and things like that, where it's like, yeah. But
I see it as a circle. I think it's both. And I know I don't know enough about all the things of it, but it sure seems like I'm more of a bio nerd and psych nerd. And I feel like nature and nurture, it's
yeah.
a circle. Like they're both impacting each other and going. I think
Mm.
as
Oh
effigy
yeah, I
comes
definitely think
out.
that it the kind of there's a little bit of a feedback loop, right? Like, it's like the children watch the woke Disney movies and become more woke, and then they, you know, all
Ask
that
their
kind of stuff.
parents.
But
Yep.
but yeah, but then I'm also like very much of the idea that it's like things like Disney movies and stuff can only get so woke because even critiques of capital end up getting kind of like swallowed up by capital and these narratives defanged, and like it's like Disney, a horrific corporation. There's so much badness and exploitation that happens there. I
So
don't think the
horrific.
real woke is going to come from, like these countries, these, like, so-called like third world countries out in the imperial periphery, rising up against the colonial oppressors, and that's to me, that's woke. That's the real woke, and that's where real change, I think, is going to begin. Um, like where we see these countries starting to stand up and fight back. Like, yeah, even like what's happening in like at the moment in the global south, out in like South Latin America and stuff like that, and Africa. Um, I think that everyone is like, there's at least like conservatives that are scared about like Antifa mocking Charlie Kirk or something like that. And it's kind of like, this is nothing. This is absolutely like not a thing that a grown adult should be worried about whatsoever. Like, this is a blip on the radar of all of our lives. Whereas, then there's like general strike an indefinite general strike about to kick off in Bolivia, which I think is like, that's the real shit. That's where everyone
Yep.
should be looking to and taking inspiration from.
Come back to the
But yeah.
material again and the vote with your dollar and the bringing it all back to that, which I do
Mm,
feel more people are more curious about now. And I'm glad too that you immediately brought up identity and how that's such a big part of this. And I feel like that's a big part of like the consistent following and people wanting to hear your different
yeah.
thoughts on like it yeah, they go.
I definitely think there's been like this like pendulum swinging back and forth a little over the last few years about like identity and politics. There was this whole thing where it was like people were like, oh, identity trumps all, and then people were like, oh no, that's identity politics. We got to bring it back to class. But I think that it's like, when you really get into things, I think class is largely the big factor, but then all these other identity factors kind of like play into it, and they also can have uh, a lot of influence over people's class, their class mobility, their class position, all this kind of stuff like that. And some identity classes are tied to very material things, like when we're talking about like one author that really for me was like a lightning bolt wake up moment was Frantz Fanon, who was a he so he was he was like a psychotherapist, French Algerian psychotherapist. So he was a black Algerian in France. Obviously, France went to Algeria, did terrible things, and then like so you get these people in France that are growing up as like colonized diaspora, and so he was like a real genius, and he took what a lot of early leftist theorists were talking about, um, and added Lenin actually kind of went into this a little bit, but he went further and started adding the identity of the colonized person into this, and how like, and kind of developing these theories about like he was like one of the very first kind of like decolonization guys. um and I think that term maybe has gotten away from people a little bit, whereas like I've talked about this with a lot of friends, where these days there tends to be this like liberal idea of decolonization that is about making yourself like look and appear unapologetically indigenous, which is like always great, but the material struggle is like getting our fucking land back and shit like that, and it's like that's the real liberation there, is to like that's where the real freedom comes from, because otherwise we're still in this horrific exploitative system where our people are dispossessed, but we have like flax earrings, and that's just like, okay, cool, like whereas like we have like our like cousins up north like living in sheds that don't have like running water and all this kind of stuff like that. And it's
Yep.
like, so Frantz Fanon was like the first guy that actually started talking about decolonization in a real sense of like, like these nations need to actually stand up and fight back against these people that have turned them into a separate lower class of person. And I think that is a really valuable analysis for any indigenous person or any person living in a colonized nation around the world, and that was the connection for me between like reading these books about like the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, all these things, and it being a thing that is like, obviously this is really important stuff, but I didn't necessarily connect it to what was happening in New Zealand and what was happening for Maori in the same way, because obviously the material conditions are very different. So yeah, reading Frantz Fanon, I was like, oh, okay, cool. This is it. This is the connection. This is the next step. He also there's like this idea, this old like leftist idea of the lumpen proletariat, which was earlier defined as like people that were like lived outside of the law, were criminals. They often used to refer to like sex workers and things, and they were like these people are not going to be introduced. They're not going to be interested in revolutionary kind of efforts. Like they're just doing their own thing. And like some theorists even thought like these people will actively sabotage any kind of liberation movement or whatever. Whereas Frantz Fanon was like, no, these people of all people have so much revolutionary potential. Like the people that have been marginalized by the system, like the criminals, the sex workers, and all this kind of stuff, they have a more acute understanding of this marginalization than other people do. And so that also for me was really powerful, just like, coming from the background that I have and stuff, where it's like, oh, okay, like, it's kind of like this guy gets it, he knows that it's not going to be necessarily like the people that are really making political change and actually getting out in their community and building mutual aid networks and establishing dual power and stuff like that are not necessarily going to be model citizens. They might be people that society looks down upon, or like obviously like sex workers who are like in amongst my friends some of the most like radical and talented organizers and network builders out of everyone, that
Best
I
business
know.
people
Um,
yeah, for sure.
yeah, exactly. People, especially people that are, like sex workers that are working outside of places that have like decriminalization. Like obviously, and even in New Zealand where we have sex work decrim, there's still a gray area there where there's like a lot of people that are still criminalized for doing sex work, and there's like, it's not a perfect system. But then my friends that are working overseas where it still is quite criminalized, the things that they just have to do just to pay bills, like the kind of networks that they have to establish to keep themselves safe, are actually very similar to the way that as activists we need to establish these networks to keep each other safe, organize, like direct action kind of things like that. And also the way that like there have been a lot of people that have pioneered um, these kind of these systems that we use to protect our privacy and keep ourselves safe as activists that comes from
Sex
sex
workers,
workers to
always the
yeah,
canary in the coal
exactly.
mine
And
every time.
yeah, and that's the other thing, the canary in the coal mine, they are disproportionately picked on by the state, and then those things, like whatever it is, whether it's some kind of like censorship or whatever, is then applied to the rest of us. So I feel like, they are actually like a really powerful like a really powerful section of um any kind of liberatory movement. And yeah, even just like within organizations that I've been in, like some of the people that helping run all the logistics and stuff like that, it sometimes it's like, oh, this is like a disabled sex worker that is at home and can't make it out of the house, but she can run this whole like comms network and all this kind of stuff, like
Yep.
um but yeah, so
And
yeah,
doesn't know her own
so
power, or that theme that kept coming up in so much of it, of
yeah,
people
yeah,
and
yeah,
just how classism and hypercapitalism and the
yeah,
ways that the whole system is then used to gaslight people into feeling
mm.
like there's no way out, there's no way to change it. Oh, that's just how it is, instead of
Yeah.
money's a
Well, yeah, so
concept we made.
yeah,
Everybody
that
needs a
thing that
place
you
to
say,
live. Like, we
like
all
that's
poop.
just how it is. Yeah, like
Oh
that's
God, when people
like
say that, ugh, ugh.
yeah. Um, yeah, because I mean, we came here to talk about curiosity and things, and I think that like pure political curiosity is like such a big thing. Like with the stream that I do with some friends of mine, Red Planet, that was like one of the original things that we kind of wanted to talk about, is like political imagination. And I guess showing people that there are other ways to do things. So, like we often will talk
Totally.
about things that happen around the world, like, like organizations that are doing things, actually putting things in action, groups that are kind of like successfully taking on, various systems or whatever. And yeah, so having this curiosity, this political imagination, I think is something that is sadly missing a lot of organizing in the imperial core. There's kind of like in people that have like a in countries that have like a parliamentary system similar to like New Zealand or the UK or even America or whatever, the um the left is kind of considered to be like, like the Democrats or Labor or whatever like that. And your duty or your praxis as like a leftist is to go and vote for the right party once every 3 or 4 years, and then and then you just can go back to doing whatever. Whereas like we have to exercise this imagination, this political imagination, to be like, what else can we be doing, and who else is already doing things, what can we learn from them? And also like this like showing people that like electoral politics is just like a very small part of it. Like if you live in a democracy, it's not just about voting that one time. Like every decision you make, is it can affect that democracy. And so like protesting and things like these are all democratic actions. Like we live in these democratic states, which is why, you know, we're seeing a lot around the world at the moment, these states cracking down on protest and things like that. You know, we see in the UK at the moment, they have jailed these people for speaking out about what is happening in Palestine, and they are being like, you know, they're on hunger strikes. Some of them are like at the moment, like day 40 something of their hunger strikes, which is like,
Oh my God.
you know, like Gandhi's longest hunger strikes were like 21 days, you know? So these people are like, you know, like they're doing these like just like hectic things. And these are expressions of their, you know, democratic rights, you know, they are allowed to protest. Well, they're
And showing
supposedly
how
allowed to protest.
they're protesting about being not allowed to protest, which
Yeah,
is
exactly. Like that's the thing. Like, yeah.
extra powerful.
Um, and so, you know, and there's like all this stuff that's happened all over the world that is like, you know, like all these different separate governments that are cracking down on people's right to protest, especially around, you know, things like America and Israel and all that kind of stuff. And I think people just need to start waking up to the fact that we're not going to be able to vote our way out of a lot of this stuff. Like it takes a real big working class mass movement like what we're seeing in like Bolivia with these like this big general strike. Like that's the stuff that grinds the government to a halt. Like in Bolivia at the moment, they so all the big unions have got together, and it's to protest a new decree that they're going to take off fuel subsidies that the government, the previous governments had put on to make gas cheaper for people to, you know, like to drive around, whatever. And so it's going to get like the price of fuel is set to go up by something like 160%. So all of the unions got together and they just said, okay, we're just doing a general strike starting from now. It's indefinite. And instead of normally you would say, like, okay, we'll negotiate and then we'll figure out when to stop it. But they've just said, there's no negotiation or anything until you stop this. Like, which is like a really powerful statement, you know? They're like, we're not
Yeah,
even gonna talk to you until you stop this, which and I think that kind of shows how much power they have. You know, they have
it's
that
that.
people power.
It's that, and that you
Exactly, you
remove
know?
your presence. There's
Yeah.
yeah, and that then that showing, or like when there were the essential workers and showing
Yeah.
how
Yeah,
essential
yeah.
what and
Yeah, yeah,
actually what
exactly.
was essential.
Yeah. So
And
like reminding people that as working class people together, we all have this power collectively to make changes and to be able to, you know, exercise our imagination to be like, what is, you know, like how can we actually get out there and make real change in the world outside of, I guess, outside of the framework that we've been told is okay to do, you know?
that one. And I'm so glad you brought up that phrase of political imagination and the story about the French Liberian and also your experience on excuse me at the intersection of cultures. And you
Mm,
said that I love that, like looking to other people and saying, what can we learn from them? What can we learn from this other movement of class consciousness, this other movement
yeah.
of getting land back to people and in all the various places, and how can we learn from what's working and what's not working, and also how can
Yeah.
we learn to work together and support
Oh
both
yeah,
the local
absolutely.
communities
Yeah, yeah.
and the different global communities of sharing the curiosity of like, hey, this worked for us, this didn't work for us,
Yeah, yeah.
hey, this worked, this
Yeah,
didn't, or whatever
yeah.
things that I think, at least in my experience, or from all sorts of different like sex work and chronic health things, I think you can forget that there's still a lot you can do and a lot of power you have. Like I'm glad you brought up the
Mm-hmm.
disabled sex worker, or like I know those people who are
Yeah, yeah.
organizing everything at home under their weighted blankets and heating pads and dealing with
Mm-hmm.
endometriosis and all sorts of horrible things, and still able to really enact a lot of change by connecting people and by things
Yeah, yeah.
that we're told. I just feel like so much of it too is like gaslighting. It's like the classic like capitalism that is, it's very gaslighty. It's the same kind of system of like,
Yeah.
oh, this is just
Well,
how it is. And
mm,
specifically with class things, or why the material part of this is so real. Obviously, if someone is so exhausted from working all the time and so
Yeah,
tired and stressed about money all the time, that limits what they can do in terms of
absolutely.
organizing,
Yeah,
in terms of changing systems, and in terms of just opening up their curiosity and political
yeah, yeah.
imagination. When you're exhausted and
There's
stressed about where am I living, how do I pay rent?
Yeah, yeah. There's a really good phrase. My friend Soph says it all the time. I can't remember where she got it from, but it's free people, free people. So it's like, like the
Love.
more time, more freedom that you have, the
Yep.
more you are able to invest that time and that freedom into then going off and helping free other people. It's like it's literally like, the Matrix, like Neo getting out of the little thing, and
Yep.
now he's like, oh, okay, now I can go back in and I can free other people. I think like the Matrix is like such I like an overused metaphor, but it's really that thing. It's like, like if you are still like locked in working
Yep.
like just hectic hours, you don't have the time to, you don't have the time to take care of your own needs, let alone helping other people around you. And this is like some people that I know that have like made just like tremendous change and radical change in their communities are people that work, I guess, like, are employed, I should say, very little or even unemployed, but they spend all their time doing other things and helping people out and doing all this kind of stuff. And it's like, like I think there is there's a huge amount of kind of like, I guess there's so many possibilities that people miss out on to do really amazing work in their community, or even just like even outside of that, just to create things or pursue their own passions or artistic desires, because they are locked into having to pay rent, and as rent goes up and inflation doesn't, or inflation goes up but wages don't, like this gap of like how much free time you get gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And I think that is like so convenient for the people that are really invested in people not kind of disrupting the status quo. But yeah, but the
Oh,
thing is,
yeah.
it's like, where do you get that time from? Like, where do you get that time, that freedom to organize? It's incredibly hard. And I know that so many activists, so many people involved in any kind of organizing burn out really young. Like they'll hit their 30s and just be like, I just can't do this anymore. I can't keep up with all this kind of stuff. Like, I've got to pay bills. I've got, kids or family or whatever like that. I can't be spending, like a couple of hours a week, going to meetings, doing these kind of things, going to public assemblies, all that kind of
And
stuff, which is like,
it's emotionally a lot of energy too.
oh
Like it's
yeah,
the time, and
absolutely.
also
And
it's the to be
yeah,
going into the heartbreaks of the whole world and the systems, and how even the classes were created in a way of using hierarchies to manipulate people and control people. And
mm,
it's heavy stuff to,
yeah, yeah.
like,
There's
even if it's, oh,
also
it's 2 hours a week, it's four.
yeah, 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 exactly. It's like sometimes it's hard to find that to us, especially if you've been working all day already, and like, yeah, so it's rough. And also just like a lot of organizations also end up having, like there's like clashes of personality and conflicts that arise in these spaces that like often treated as secondary or not managed correctly, so that they become bigger things. And like I know people that have just quit organizing groups because they're like,
Yep.
man, like there's been a conflict here and it hasn't been managed well, so like I'm not comfortable here or whatever, and or it's just too much work to put into this kind of thing. So I think that yeah, there's a thing, maybe another thing that people need to learn how to imagine is to imagine new methods, or I mean, just like think of new methods of like uh not even just like conflict resolution, I think is a big thing, but also to imagine like existing in spaces where you don't have to be best friends with everyone, but they are your comrades, you know. And this is actually, yeah, something, another thing, a friend of mine, a sex worker, posted online the other day. I can't remember if she posted or retweeted or whatever, but she was like, all the girls at the club I work with, I fucking hate some of them, but they're my sisters and I'll take a bullet for them, you know? And I feel like, like there's so many really good orgs that have just been brought low because of like a breakup or something like that. And it's like sometimes you just need to just fucking keep your eyes on the prize, on the bigger picture, and just be like, yeah, fuck it. Like, like your shitty ex is going to be at the meeting, but like we have bigger work than that, you know. But
Totally. Well, and also having the
yeah,
humanity to say, like, yes, that's upsetting. Your shitty ex is there, and no, you don't have to talk to
yeah.
them. And I think when
And
people
it's like it's not the craziest thing in the world, right? Like
that there's bigger
yeah,
fish to fry here, or that there's that
yeah,
the overall freedom is more than that. And not that it's not
yeah,
relevant or that whatever things, or like, oh, if it's that, then go organize from home and don't be at the meeting. And there's other ways to still to be
yeah,
in community or to participate in things. Because I think
mm-hmm.
for that part of and I love that free people,
Yeah,
that, and there's another quote of something like, you can't get, it's an Abraham Hicks, who sometimes I think is spiritually bypassy, but mostly I like, and says, you can't get sick enough to make sick people well. You can't get poor enough to make poor people rich. That
yeah,
putting your own oxygen mask on first. And I think actually some of this
yeah,
stuff goes
yeah,
into the other curiosity that I wanted to talk about, and hear things about artistic curiosity and how that connects into
mm,
the identity curiosity and the expressing your identity, figuring out that identity. Because I think that, like, you're bringing up the different infighting things that can happen, or people are attempting to organize and remind people, hey, we're all on the same team about how much money controls and dictates our life, and
yeah,
how much power we have to influence the systems of money because of how much money we have, and blah blah blah. That I think, well, okay, a few things here I want to hear your thoughts on, because I think there's a big piece about how you said that tattooing is your biggest passion, and that you following that is a big part of you keeping
mm,
yourself free to keep doing things to free other people. And I also think there's a big part, what was the other one about, um the like, I don't know how to best describe about, I think that a lot of any person who's pursuing their artistic passion and who follows their curiosity to continuously learn more about it and grow, I think that there's something that you kind of touched on earlier, that that's a form of activism on its own, in that it shows people that they can do that too. Like, you being very upfront and out about loving tattooing and loving tattoos and wanting to learn about it and wanting to learn from the different cultures and wanting to connect it to your different heritages and your different experiences and
mm,
other people's, and how it is in different culture. Like, that kind of passion and that excitement is real, and I think that it encourages people to do their version of that, and to be more honest with themselves about what gets me that passionate, what are the things that I love to grow and learn about, which is literally how community functions and thrives. Is like, hey, I do tattoos, hey, I can sew, hey, I can fix cars, hey, I can build houses, hey, I can do all these things, and people get to follow that. But I think
yeah,
there's a lot in there about how that inspires people, and how that also breaks people out of the matrix of, there's more options than 9 to 5 in a cubicle and whatever structure of
mm,
things. Or, like, I know for
yeah,
me, a
yeah,
big part of sex work benefits, and then also one of the things I found that really upset people in a lot of ways, oddly, about sex work, or upset certain people about the time freedom that can come, or the making your own schedule,
oh
or
yeah, yeah,
any of those jobs.
mm,
When you do that, that then it kind of hits a nerve in people, good or bad, of like, wait, I could do that. Wait, oh my God, I could,
yeah,
hold on, I could be structuring my whole day differently too if I wanted.
mm. Yeah. I think that's like a thing when if you're doing something that um if you're doing something that enables you to live the lifestyle that you want to live and other people see that, I think that can be kind of quite inspiring. It is kind of wild though. I always think about the way that social media has changed people's perspectives of I guess of both tattooing and sex work as well, where there's like this new influencer category of like the tattooist influencer or the sex worker influencer that is not representative of like 99.99% of
Yeah.
the industry. So we get these like kids showing up that want to do like tattoo apprenticeships because they think that they're gonna like just make $1 million and they're gonna get to sleep in, and they're gonna be like hooking up with like models and all this kind of stuff like that. And it's like, no, the reality of being like a really good and like the real deal good tattooist is like lots of late nights, early mornings. Like you have to be very obsessed, like sometimes to the detriment of your own like relationships and things. Is like, and it's like I don't think anyone has ever like made a huge amount of money from being a tattooist, maybe from like running tattoo shops or like tattoo supply companies and things like that, which some tattooists do get into, especially as they age. But it's not a lucrative industry unless you're scamming people. It's to be a good, honest tattooer, there's only so many hours of the day that
Yep.
you can tattoo and chart. So it's yeah, so it's definitely not that path. Like a lot of people think they'll just they'll just like it'll be sick. You'll just get to like just draw fun stuff all day and like whatever. And I think like when you get to a certain part in your career, it does kind of become like that to an extent where like I've found the more I put myself out there online about the kind of person I am and the values that I have and the things that I'm interested in, the more my clientele has kind of become people that, echo those same things. So I don't often get problem clients or, people that have weird politics or anything like that. Usually it's pretty chill. So that's not really a problem, but there's like a lot of people out there, and like for a long time before I really kind of carved out my niche in the industry, it was a lot of hard work with a lot of like very interesting people as clients doing very weird things and getting put in weird situations and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, it is a really difficult thing to succeed in, and especially in a country like New Zealand where there's like I lived in Melbourne for a little while, and there's more people in Melbourne than there is in the entire like in all of New Zealand. So
I didn't know that. Cool.
yeah, which is wild, right? So yeah. But
Easy.
yeah, so it's very like yeah, it's a small world for tattooing, and it easily, I would say it's recently hit critical mass in New Zealand where we probably had as many good tattooists as could be really
For the
like
population.
supported by the amount of people that want to get tattooed. And there have been a lot of people leaving the industry recently and all that kind of stuff, which is just kind of a natural kind of response to the market, I would guess, I would say. But yeah, so it's definitely not this thing where people just think that they can just show up and, start drawing skulls and barbed wire and they're going to be like Instagram famous and, all that kind of stuff. And I think like, for like, it's a similar thing where there's like a lot of these people that see these sex work influencers that are making a huge amount of money, and they just think like, oh, I can just go and do that and that'll be fine. And it's kind of like, man, like not everyone can do that. Like, I mean, there's also like there's a lot of things like, you know, your kind of ability as a person to do this work and all that kind of stuff. And then there's like, there's also luck and all that kind of things. Like some people just luck into, like becoming these like influencer types.
There's also
There's
industry
so many things.
plans as
Yeah.
influencers. Like I think there's I'm glad you brought up the influencer whatever label of category of
Hmm.
things and how well that makes me think too, going back to you bringing up the matrix or other ways that media can be helpful or harmful based on
Hmm.
how what how accurate it is, frankly, and also how
Yeah.
much room it leaves for curiosity to go learn from someone or really talk and figure out more
Hmm.
about whatever the thing is, versus like almost watching it like a TV show in the influencer of like, oh, this is what it's like to be a tattoo artist and blah 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 and like day in my life as a doing this.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're a YouTuber then. Like your job is a YouTuber.
Yeah.
And that's
Well,
okay.
that's the thing. Yeah, exactly. I think it's like the product then becomes the dream that they are selling as opposed to the service that they are providing.
Yeah,
And
but
you
then the
sometimes, you
issue,
see,
but then you're misinforming people.
yeah, and there's also that thing where, there's people in these scenes that will then go on to sell like educational content. They'll be like, how to be a like, and it's crazy because for tattooing, they're never about like how to be a great tattooist that gets along well with their clients. It's like how to get booked out 1 year in advance. It's like, and it's all just, you like all the content is just like, oh, you gotta like, go through your emails and cold email every single person you've ever tattooed and tell them that you're booking for the next month or whatever, just like shit
Yeah.
like that. That is like, it's the kind of thing where it's
Hyper
like, yeah, it
capital
might
it's
get you,
it's
like, it
hyper
might get you a couple
capitalism,
bookings.
but
Yeah,
it's
yeah. I
also
mean,
just
it's
like
like this whole thing where it's like forcing people to become these like, like to become businesses as opposed to individuals or whatever. But yeah, and it's like it's just going to end up alienating people from you. It's going to be weird. And like, yeah, a friend of mine was talking the other day about how there's a whole thing with this in sex work as well. Like there's these people that are like, teaching like, kind of new sex workers how to do certain things or whatever, like how to hustle, how to like make content and all this kind of
yep.
stuff. And a lot of it is like they're making the content to sell as a package. And like, people are paying thousands of dollars for this stuff. And it's like that's the real hustle. That's where the business is. Like it's no longer on the actual performing of the work, but it's sort of selling it, and it's a pyramid scheme or whatever. But
Oh, not whatever it is. It is, and
yeah.
I think, and I'm curious your thoughts on this too. Is not all of capitalism a pyramid scheme? And I say this as
Oh yeah,
someone
yeah.
who like I think there's room for it in certain things, not in things humans die without, but like if people want to have capitalism and makeup or fashion or things, if people still
Mm.
have clothes and access, I'm like, okay, I don't care that much, but this is all a pyramid scheme. Like, surely,
Yeah.
yeah. And it happened too. I was a yoga teacher, and that was a classic, like the yoga influencer that made it seem like anyone made a livable wage on yoga when then they were just selling different courses on things or how to do here's how you whatever. Oh man, that just reminded me. Someone asked me to come on their podcast and do a like how to be an escort. And I was like,
Yeah,
no, and here's why. Like that,
yeah. A friend,
whoa, like no.
yeah. My friend, Dr. Gwyn Easterbrook Smith, who is a really amazing academic, who is also a sex worker, and a lot of their work revolves around sex work. They did a book called Producing the Acceptable Sex Worker like a year back or something like that, which was really good about media representations of sex workers. Like in New Zealand with decriminalization, and how it's like kind of like it's the idea of producing the image of a sex worker that is acceptable to the public. And it's really good. But they also have they've just written a chapter for a book, just like they've just finished it, uh the chapter is, I've got it here, Platform Sex Work and Workplace Self-Help Literature, Discourses of Authenticity and Individualism. And it's in a book called Transformations of Labor Under the Lens of Sex Work, I think it is, or Through the Lens of Sex Work. Which is navigating digitalization, precarity, and resistance. But like the chapter that they wrote is all about that kind of the workplace self-help literature of like sex work and how it kind of just like exactly what we're talking about right now. It's crazy because it like they just sent me like a link just the other day and it popped into my head as we were talking about them. Like this is exactly what they were talking about.
That means we're right on the
But
pulse. We're right on it.
we
We're
are,
right on, and
yeah.
about freedom and about how it
Yeah,
contributes to giving people the freedom to have imagination
yeah,
again.
yeah. They Gwen, Dr. Gwen is a great genius. A friend of mine that has like they've they've done some amazing writing recently. They did another really good recent one about AI porn. It's called Pornographic Aura, AI and the Value of Authenticity, which is funny because I tattooed them a little while back and we were literally talking about there's that Walter Benjamin had that whole thing about uh what was it? It was like I can't remember the name of he's got this like iconic piece that is talking about the spirit of an artwork in the age of mechanical reproduction of art. And we were talking about, like how the weird thing about like AI porn and like what is the spirit of this? And they were like, I am literally writing about that right now. So yeah. But
Yeah,
they're great. They're a great mind.
maybe I need to
They've
get
also done a
Dr.
lot of
Gwen
like
here if they're open.
yeah, maybe. Yeah, they're great. We've had them on Red Planet before. They're great mind. They've also done a lot of really interesting work writing about smells, and it's specifically about transgender and non-binary people's experiences with smells and identity and all that kind of stuff, which is really interesting as well. Plug, 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 plug.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, I even think
Things
like,
to be
like,
curious about and remind people,
yeah,
and even
exactly.
just remind people that we can, like doing that
Mm,
kind of study and writing any of these kinds of things that then sparks that freedom in someone else to go
yeah.
research the thing they want to research or go say, oh, I've always been thinking about this thing and like why don't I
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
why
yeah.
why can't I can go look into this or go
Yeah,
create a
yeah, yeah.
study or find other people who want to look into this too and see how this can help us and help humanity and
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I feel
all of the
like
passion.
um yeah, it kind of goes back to that other thing that we were talking about, like freeing people. And it's kind of like, like how many people have these amazing mind altering things to say that never get said because they're busy like waiting tables or something like that. So I think
Yep. Or just too burnt out
yeah,
from waiting
there's
tables to then do anything else.
yeah, and then you see all these people that have created these great works over time, and then you find out that they're all fucking like nepo babies, or they had these like wealthy sponsors and stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, like well, maybe we would have more great works of culture and media if more people were able to spend the time to like chase these thoughts and dreams and projects and things. But yeah, we just don't.
Because they all have a
Yeah,
good thing
most
to
people just
say.
don't get the chance to we don't get the chance to indulge that curiosity, even for me with my own artwork and tattooing, I always had these ideas about ways of like different kind of approaches to art or drawing and all these kind of things, and I never had the time to actually sit down and be like, okay, I'm just gonna do a bunch of studies. I'm gonna figure this out for years and years. And I was kind of getting a bit jaded and dissatisfied with my own artwork, but I was constantly having to churn out like every night you're just drawing for the next day. You're tattooing all day, you're going home and you're drawing for the next day. So an interesting thing for me was when the COVID lockdowns happened down here, our initial government response to COVID was really good, probably amongst the best in the world. They kind of fucked it up towards the end, but initially we did these lockdowns, and for self-employed people like Mustados are, we were eligible for a government subsidy. So we were able just to get paid. It wasn't that much, but it was enough that it covered rent and things like that. So that period, and we had lockdowns for like, it was like a couple months or something like that. That was the first period where I was getting paid and I didn't have anything pressing to do, which I had never experienced. Like, I started working when I was quite young, so I had just never had a period. And as a self-employed person, you don't get like holiday pay or
You
sick
work
pay or anything
more.
like
You're
that.
working more because you're working for yourself.
Yeah, yeah. So it was wild to be like, oh, actually, I don't have anything to draw for tomorrow or the day after or next week or whatever. So I was able to actually spend time on personal stuff, personal projects. Yeah, like a lot of stuff. I just got to draw whatever I wanted. And at first, that's a little bit weird. Like, I think at first I was a bit, I had a little bit of a artistic paralysis.
Yeah, you're like, what do
But
I
I
want? I
do
haven't had
think
this question.
yeah, I do think that there was things that I explored in that period that definitely changed my my approach to a lot of the way that I draw and tattoo, and I definitely see that as a pivotal moment. Um, so yeah, I was really lucky. Like, not everyone had such a privileged position to be in during lockdown. I mean, it wasn't all great. Like, it was actually like it was a pretty rough time to be locked up and all that kind of stuff. But like, I mean, it beats dying of COVID. So,
All sorts of things. Well, and it
yeah,
also
yeah.
I'm glad you brought this up too, because I think that the kind of breaking out of the matrixness that happened
Mm,
for a lot of people in similar stories of having some pressure release of money from
mm,
unemployment, from being paid to stay home, from whatever the different like story of how it was handled in a way that gave someone that
mm.
the first time experience that you had of, wait a minute, I can draw what I want. Wait, what do I want to draw? Wait,
Yeah,
whatever my voice in the back of my head of rent or bills or these things, like
yeah, yeah,
that's, I don't even have to entertain that voice or like scheduling with people or thinking about this person I'm gonna see. Like it cleared so much away that
yeah.
I think
Mm,
it is a pivotal kind of moment because of how it reprograms and opens you up to be more curious about more of like, well, hold on.
yeah,
And for how so many people collectively were like, wait, this has been an option the whole time. Like being more curious about the whole system because wait, how was this able to happen at all? Like, couldn't this have happened before? If if like
mm,
magically now
yeah,
we can pay all the tattoo artists to stay home, could we not
yeah, yeah.
could we not have paid them like at least something? Like given them
Yeah, I think
medical,
that
given them like
yeah, there was a lot of stuff as well about like people being allowed to work from home, and in the
yep.
past they were like, we can't do that. You absolutely can't do that. It doesn't matter if you're like disabled or whatever. You got to come into the office. Then as soon as it became a thing, they were like, oh no, yeah, you guys can just work from home. Like, which is fucking wild. But
Oh yeah, and like places that
yeah,
were more
it's just
productive.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So it's like you see, oh, this is kind of a thing where um we're starting to figure out where like what some of these things that we've always taken to be true actually kind of are, like the idea of like this 40-hour work week, and all this kind of stuff. You start learning about like, oh, it wasn't actually always that way, and not everywhere in the world is that way. Yeah, there's a quote that is what it's in Marx's Capital Volume 1. I can't remember exactly whereabouts, but it's something about like
Yeah.
capitalism producing circumstances which then it presents to be self-evident, so that you go like, oh, this is the way that this works because it's the most logical way and this is how it works. And it's like, no, we have a 4-hour workday because we used to have we had 4 day work week because we used to have a 7 day work week, and then everyone got together and was like, no, fuck that, we actually want some days off, and fought back, so it's like things like that. I think that COVID was a period of that, where people being like, oh, we can actually work from home, that is a viable model. And then commercial real estate started plummeting, and they're like, we need people back in the offices. But
People
yeah,
were already
so I
waking
think
up
that,
to
like,
see, like, hold on.
yeah, yeah,
The
yeah,
system that I was
like
told
people are like,
had to be
oh,
like this, it
yeah,
didn't have to be
yeah,
like this.
yeah, exactly. And it's like, well, we can, like, you start realizing that the entire history of, like, everyone's relation to work, to production, to capital, and all of, like, this is all just stuff that we just made up, and we can, like, make
That,
up something else.
that, but to circle
um
us back, hold on, to circle us back to material, because it is, I was just writing down like the free your mind and that how much of that
hmm.
is powerful here, but it's free your mind and also land back and also
Oh
food for
yeah,
everyone and medical resources,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
education for every
yeah.
that it is
Well, yeah,
the
the land
material.
back thing, I think, is another interesting thing, because there's people are seriously lacking imagination there, where they hear a phrase like land back, and they hear about, indigenous people getting their land returned to them, and they think that, like, so we're still here, we're still operating within the liberal idea of land ownership. So land ownership, as we understand it, living in, the countries that we do, where it's like, oh, you can buy land as an individual and it belongs to you.
Yeah.
Whereas, like,
Instead of
land back
stewardship and
as,
caring and existing
well,
with
that's the
and
thing.
in
It's like the
community.
idea, like, land back is really land reform, about restoring a, a different relationship to land, as opposed to just owning it. It's like, like, we have a very different relationship to land. And I mean, like, relationship in, like, even in, like, the economic terms of, like, our relationship to productive land versus non-productive land, all these kind of things. So when we're talking about land back, what we really, like, the discussion needs to be like, we need to imagine bigger things than just more Maori people owning land, because then, we get this situation at the moment where it's like I saw an incredible thing going down on Instagram the other week, where it was uh, a relatively, I was going to say, comfortable Maori woman, who's an influencer, talking about how she was uncomfortable with referring to herself as a landlord. So she was proposing alternative titles and kind of coming up with these, like, Maori language titles, and was talking about, like, how she was decolonizing being a landlord. And it's like, no, the way that you decolonize being a landlord is that you do not become a landlord. Like, it's like, that's just not like, that's not a thing.
Or
Like, we need to
maybe
change
you,
our relationship to
yeah,
land.
maybe you
Yeah,
do some
not
kind of like ethical work trade where someone's living there to help you steward the land, or they're
yeah,
like
yeah,
part
yeah,
of
or
the
just
team in
like,
the community
yeah,
of
like, there's a lot of
care.
other things you can do, but just changing the word itself because it makes you feel a little bit yuck is like it should make you feel yuck. That term should make you feel, like, uncomfortable, and you should think more about why that is, as opposed to, like,
Yeah.
what can I do to assuage my guilt while, members of my tribe are living in corrugated iron shacks, like,
Mm.
um so yeah, like, stuff like that, I think, is, we're still trapped within the liberal understanding of land ownership, where we need to get back to
Yeah.
communal land ownership and management. And this, obviously, is more relevant in, places like Aotearoa, places like Hawaii, where there is, like, an indigenous presence, but even in countries like, like the UK, where it's like they don't have, like, like, a native group that is, like, kind of, well, I mean, they actually, in some ways, they do, but it's like restoring land back to, like, historically, the idea of the commons and all this kind of stuff, where it's like capitalism began with this, like, well, arguably, but began with the enclosure of the commons and this removal of common land and property. And, like, that was when, landlordism and stuff really began. um and people started going like, okay, all of this land belongs to this person, and you need to pay to hunt there, or you need to work the land in exchange, and all this kind of stuff. So even these countries, like right in the heart of Europe, in the heart of these empires, they like land reform is something that would fundamentally change everything. So land back, I think, as a concept, is valuable all over the world, not just where there are indigenous groups organizing to regain their like the land that they were unjustly dispossessed of you know
But
but
the
I think that's
form
like
of
kind
it,
of the
of the
thing.
the connection, pardon it, it's just everything you're saying is about how much people get disconnected from
Yeah, yeah.
all these
Well,
ways
yeah, and
that
I
purposely disconnect
yeah,
people from
like a lot of
nature.
people will focus on like when they think about the relationship with land, especially when it's indigenous people talking, they will think about like this metaphysical relationship, like this kind of like idea of like a spiritual relationship with the land between people, which is like definitely like a thing. But I think that we even just need to think about our actual like material relationship with
Yep.
the land, and how that affects our day-to-day lives and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I feel like. Yeah, there's people really need to be using their imagination about thinking about a life that exists outside of the current paradigm, and yeah, and how they relate to even like these things that like we're thinking about, or things that we are like existing around every day, whether it's like housing or like public transport infrastructure, all these kind of things. Like we need to be um like I think there's no one size fits all solution to any of these problems, because it's always going to be a response to the material conditions of the place. So the way to the way to make life better for Hawaiians is going to be very different to like mainland America and all these other places. We need to look at the material conditions and see what needs organizing around, and then work towards those goals. Because yeah, I think there's a lot of people that kind of just think like, oh, there's gonna be like a revolution moment, and one day we're all just gonna get fed up, and we're just gonna go, and we're gonna go storm the White House, and then we'll put one of our guys in charge, and then we're all good. And then you see, like, I mean, it would exactly end up just like the whole like January 6th thing that the conservative freaks did, where they just like stormed the White House, caused chaos for like an hour, and then just like went and got Starbucks and went home. And it's like you have no mainstream support. You have no plan for what happens next. You haven't built. Um, there's the idea of dual power, where it's like you have to build a power system that people trust, that can compete with the existing state. So this usually happens through like like unions or something like that, where they like, or like a vanguard party or something like that, where people go like, okay, we've got a plan, we're going to take control, this is the next step. And the public has to trust those people to do that. So you can't just storm the like you can't storm the White House and expect that anything is going to happen aside from just like a fun day out, unless you have been
So
working for
fun.
years and years.
But
Like
there's
you
no
have to be like,
sustainable change there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like you have to have a plan, and you have to have like years and years worth of organizing and building dual power mutual aid networks, have like the people on your side. And it's just like that's a multi-generational project, right? Like that's not it doesn't happen like the Hunger Games or anything like that. It's
More
like
propaganda.
it's gotta
It's
be like,
well,
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
getting to people's minds and hearts. One of the things that is just echoing my head with so much of this is that totally that getting land reform and all sorts of reform for Maori people versus Hawaiian people versus all sorts of different indigenous cultures is going to be
Mm,
different based on where it is, and also like we said before,
yep.
have similar themes that we can help and communicate and people can support of like what works or doesn't work here. But the
Mm,
the thing that keeps coming up in my head is the common theme that all indigenous communities have a direct connection to the land and a direct stewardship with the land. There's
Mm.
literally Jewish law of payah and cutting the corners of fields to make sure that everybody has access to food, and that you literally have to
Yeah.
leave corners so that everybody has food. And obviously now there's a country that is starving people from food and saying that's a
Yeah.
Jewish value, when no, you're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not being anywhere near the actual indigenous culture of connecting with the
Yeah.
land, respecting the land, working with the land, valuing the land, and
Mm.
like you said, of multi-generational, or just that it's a deeper, it's not a one day go storm something and go sit somewhere. It's
Yeah.
a shift your mindset even to see that there are many systems to purposely disconnect us from nature
Yeah.
and from each other and from our human nature.
Mm.
And like that meme that went super viral that was like, we're just supposed to be eating berries and having sex. And everyone was like, oh my
Yeah.
God,
Yeah.
we are. Like, we're just supposed to be
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
nature. It's like, I think that was a big part of why that took off so much, was that
Yeah.
direct
I mean,
land
I think,
connection.
yeah, there is like, I think a lot of people like even just through memes, they see something like that and they identify with it because they're like, like how come like the world, everything is out there in the world, like all the food, all the
Nature's
resources
always
and
there.
everything is out there, but every year we get less and less access to it, like
Like during
yeah,
COVID when
which
they
is
shut down parks or nature, that was crazy.
yeah,
When I was like, oh, you
yeah,
can't
yeah,
go
yeah,
be in
just like
nature? What?
yeah, yeah, things like that. And yeah, like all kinds of ways, like, and even if it's just like having less access to it because it is, you just don't have the time to go out and have those experiences because you're so busy with work, or
Yeah.
like like sometimes you go to the supermarket and you see like a box of berries is like $20 or more, and you're just like in cherries and things like that, you're just like what the fuck, like why is
Yeah.
this, how has this become a thing?
Yes,
And
and the disconnection of like
yeah,
people not, not knowing how different foods grow, or just not having any
yeah,
connection to, oh yeah, food grows from the land. Oh
yeah,
yeah, these
yeah, there's
animals
been
live on the land.
some amazing projects around the world. On Red Planet, we had a guest from the Gaskell Gardens project, which there's like, and I think we've had a couple people from different similar things where they create these community gardens in the middle of cities and things like
Yes, and the
that.
food
And
desert,
it's
those are
like,
so cool.
but it's like this crazy thing where at first I was kind of just like, oh, okay, it's just like, whatever, but
Bullshit
then I
hippie.
was actually struck by how radical it actually is and how
Yep.
they become these hubs for so much other stuff. And it was really, yeah, really interesting, like I think that those kind of places are great. And I think they definitely are a great place for people to kind of dip their toes into kind of seeing what could be, like because you can just go to a community garden, check in with the people there and start helping out, and it's like it's pretty low stakes, you just go on a Sunday or something like that.
You're
And
like, I'm
then,
just
and like a
gardening.
lot of them are like,
I'm just part of it. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just gardening, but my
And then
whole
before you
political
know it, you're just
imagination,
like, yeah, yeah. Yeah, before you know it, you're like a communist storming the Winter Palace.
like
No,
reading marks, and
but
you're
yeah,
like reading
like
marks in the garden, being like, we do all just need to get the basics. This is just like really
yeah,
doable,
yeah. But
actually.
there's but there's like so many people involved with a lot of those projects are also involved with other leftist organizing projects like communists and anarchists and stuff like that, and so it's also a great place to just meet people and do all that kind of stuff. But
And it's a
yeah, I
third
think
space. It creates a
that
third space for people too.
yeah, 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 absolutely, which is really important as well. um and I think just having something that is there that you can go and be a part of, I think is really good for a lot of people who feel like they lack community, which I think is like, as people are kind of like increasingly alienated under, like economic pressures and all that kind of stuff, just having a space that you can go to meet people, like, and have a little bit of social interaction, all that kind of stuff, I think is really valuable as well.
Oh, hugely, to remind people that
Yeah.
there is not the doom and gloom that we see online, that there's not the division we see online either, that most people are centrist, most
Mm.
people care about everybody being fed, that if you get out in the
Yeah,
world,
yeah,
you can see that there are more people who are more imaginative than we're all propagandized to. Like if
yeah,
you get on social media, it's I think there's a lot of making it seem like there isn't that freedom, there isn't that imagination, and then you go to a community garden something and
yeah,
it's almost overwhelming, or it can be, to see just wait, all these people care, all these people are doing cool things,
yeah, yeah,
people
yeah.
are
Like I've seen
wanting to learn.
there's one that I know of just in Auckland City up on Simon Street. There's a community garden there that they regularly do things like little events to raise money for like Gaza, like they were like selling plants there with like, and they'll have like a DJ going and stuff. And it's just like this really like cool,
So
wholesome
wholesome.
vibe. Yeah. So I think like stuff like that is a really great way for people to get in there and see what else could be possible. And there's heaps of literature on these kind of things for people that want to start up their own little things. And there's also just like I really love this gung ho attitude that you tend to get a lot from tends to be a lot of anarchists will like just go and start doing something like that in a space that is like technically illegal or something like that, but they're just like, fuck it, we're just gonna put a garden here, which I
Yeah,
like that is something that I do.
guerrilla gardening.
Yeah, guerrilla gardening
Like
stuff.
people
I
going out in
really
the middle of the night with
appreciate that about
seeds. I think that's so cool.
yeah. There was one of the guys that we got on Red Planet talking about it was I can't remember what he said. There was because he was talking a lot about the way that you plant different plants together and then they grow kind of in
Companion
simpatico
planting.
together. And he said
Companion.
there was yeah, companion planting. There was something, it was like borage and something else. And he was like, you can put this fucking anywhere and cracks in the sidewalk, whatever, and it'll just grow and grow and
Yep.
grow. And just stuff like that, which I think is cool. Like,
Yep.
just
You
like
can
low key
protest.
planting some pumpkins or something.
Yeah. And feeding people, or people talking about like
Mm.
why aren't all these public trees fruit trees, or why are we not
Yeah,
having
yeah.
some of them be. You can also guerrilla garden with mint. You didn't hear it from me, but if you
Oh,
want,
really?
look, yeah, it
Yeah.
is very mint takes over. So if you have a
Mm.
mean landlord or something, then give them lots of
Sure.
tea to help them calm down. You're just looking out for their
Oh, yeah.
cardiovascular
Yeah.
system to chill.
Nice.
Great for
Yeah.
your nerves.
Mm-hmm.
It's good faith, and I
Yeah.
think it also just like the relief of knowing that there's people doing those kinds of things, and that
Mm.
then again, oh yeah, I could go do that too, or I could go do this other thing that I was thinking, or I have options. There's options. It's not all gloom. It's not all horrible.
Yeah.
There's a
No,
lot
it's
of
not all
horrible
gloom.
shit.
And I think,
Don't get me
yeah,
wrong.
that's one
Not
thing that we definitely try and focus on with Red Planet is the kind of optimistic side of things. There definitely is a lot of doom and gloom that we get into on there because it is a reflection of the world. But just trying to be more looking at the positives and like the positive examples of things happening around the world and like people that are doing these like actions and protests to actually do something about it, um because I think that optimism doesn't necessarily come from seeing good outcomes but from seeing hope and seeing people taking action. I think for me anyway, so you might see some people that are actually getting out in the streets and protesting something, um like something really important, and it puts that in you that you're like, oh, these are just people and they just did that. One of them that I found really really impressive and powerful was I think it was last year or so. There was in Mexico City, there was I think it was a trans sex worker had been murdered, and the people and the courts had basically decided they were like not going to punish the guy that did it. It was caught doing it, and it was like the whole thing was just like it was so slimy, the whole case. Like it was, yeah, it was horrific. So the Mexico City Sex Workers Union and some other unions got together with them, and they literally just raided the courthouses with like hammers, and they were smashing all the windows, all the glass, and they got in there and just like destroyed the place. And like
Wow.
they just did that and then just left, and that was it. And it was like all because of their comrade, this trans sex worker, had been killed, and had not
No
been
justice.
given any justice or whatever like that. And so just being like, oh, they can just go in there and they can do that, like they just like. And once again, they're not like fucking, it's not like Rambo or anything like that. These are just people, these are
And they
just
weren't
people
hitting
that have,
people.
yeah. They're just like, they have a lot in common with us. These are people from our same class position and everything like that. And they just went in there and they were just like, hey, fuck it. We're just gonna show them that like these courts are not above the people,
That
which I think is a really powerful statement. And I saw a lot of people like hooting and hollering about that because it was like, it was just like such a powerful moment to watch. And so it's like, like that doesn't necessarily equate to like that's not like, that's not a video of people crossing the finish line at the fucking Revolution Olympics or anything like that. But that's like an example of people taking matters into their own hands as a group, and and doing something important, and something that needed to be done. And I think that that kind of content and that kind of news is really empowering for people, because then they go like, wait a minute, like that person's like me, like I could be like that, I should, and I
hugely empowering.
I try not to encourage adventurism, and even like then
Mhm.
I have a complicated kind of take on that, which is like a whole other thing. But this idea of like people that want to go out and do these big activist things as out of their own sense of like, I want to do something crazy and exciting and I want to be seen doing it, or like whatever. Like I think that's something that you really have to be wary of, especially with some people who don't have the patience or the drive to settle in for the long game, but they just want to do something crazy, whatever, and it's like sometimes you do need to be bold, but also I think you really need to be careful of people that just want to do crazy stuff,
Well, and then that kind of
um
makes me think of the like influencer whatever, where oh, you're doing this more for the video than for the
yeah,
action. And of course,
yeah.
like people need to all do different roles. Not everyone's good
Mm,
at gardening. People got to do different
yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
I hear the
yeah.
point of
And
the
there's like, yeah, there's
what are they doing it for? Like what's their real intention?
yeah. And I think it's like, and so, there's a lot of cases where it's like, oh, okay, no, it's, like regardless of their own motivations, the deed itself was good, and the propaganda of the deed is good. um but yeah, I do think that there's still like, there's a lot to consider, especially when you're affiliated with an organization and doing that kind of stuff and doing it safely for you and your comrades, your fellow organizers, and all of that kind of stuff. um yeah, it's not all fun and games and adventures. It's a lot of meetings and assemblies and discussions on, you know all kinds of boring things.
Yeah, well, and getting
Yeah.
to the deep unpacking of how do we get here?
Mm-hmm.
Where do we want to go from here? Like, all these very big human questions. What
Yeah.
do I want? What am I doing? But then with a group and with
Mm.
all of this context and all of these different cultures and all of the histories of colonization and all the violence and
Yeah.
all of the capitalism and all the violence there as well and blah blah blah, that
Mm.
maybe the world needs some kind of show or some kind of bulletin of like, here's all the good news of like humanity, activism, like
I
vote
definitely
towards
have
freedom.
seen, yeah, I've seen that kind of stuff before. There was I don't know if it's actually still going, but there was it was like a positive leftist news thing that was on YouTube, and there were some like leftist YouTubers that were doing it, and they would just try and just focus on just the good stuff,
To
which was
balance out the stuff that
yeah,
focuses on
yeah, yeah.
bad stuff.
Yeah, which I think is like really cool. And they they did a lot of great stuff, and they focused on things that were outside of the kind of outside of the radar of a lot of I guess like Western or imperial core kind of leftists, which is really cool. I don't know if it's still going or how regular it is, but it was yeah, it was great. I like that kind of those kind of initiatives. Just like aggregating all these good things that are happening around the world. We try and do that. We always start off our Red Planet streams with like a section of news about what's happening around the world. We try to, like I said before, we try to keep it positive. Sometimes there's a little bit of doom and gloom in there, but
Is
yeah,
is
we try and
reality
focus on
as
things.
is
Yeah, yeah, and we
as
we
is
do we try
reality.
and get in things from all around the world, like try and keep up with what's happening in places that people have never heard of before, and
And connect them. I think this is the fun and good part of the
Mm,
internet that can't be squashed. That they're
yeah, yeah,
we're able to connect through. Oh, I saw tweets and these things, and we can talk
yeah.
about a podcast and talk about all these other different, like having
And
that real
there's
human
definitely
moment.
there's a lot of stuff that we will talk about, and slowly, like like we'll see something happening in one part of the world, and then maybe next week a similar thing will happen somewhere else, and we'll be able to say, hey, this is these same material forces
Yep.
that are causing this in Thailand are also causing this over here, just things like that. um and trying to paint the bigger picture instead of, oh, these are disconnected events, like these are all
Yeah.
part of the greater economic system.
And the whole
So yeah,
activist network all like linking up or all understanding.
yeah, we've
Like the mycelium
we've had
network,
some
like you can sense something else is
oh yeah,
happening. You're like, oh wait, this is
yeah,
happening there. Oh, they need this nutrient there, and they send whatever thing
yeah,
to the
yeah.
network.
We try to get on as many like guests from different like different countries or like groups or whatever as much as possible. Sometimes it's a little bit hard, because like it's just hard to make contacts in some of those places, but we try our best to get people from various organizations or countries all over the world when we can.
I got a person for you. I'll give you after we stop here. I'll give you
Oh, okay,
the
sounds good.
yeah,
Cool.
very. Thank you for teaching me the term land reform in that context of instead of
Oh
land
yeah.
back. I think that stuff is a big help to my
Well, I
curiosity.
think it's just
So
like land back is very snappy and a very good slogan. And I think it's just like we need to bring the conversation beyond just land ownership and to land reform.
and land stewardship.
That's my
Like we're not
take.
talking about
And if
owning
you
here. We're
yeah,
talking.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
If you really look into what a lot of indigenous groups are saying, that's what they are generally saying. It's just that you get like a lot of freaks that don't understand it, that are like, they're talking about kicking out all the white people from America. And it's like,
Ugh.
no, like they just
Ugh.
like people just make that up,
Yeah.
like, but yeah.
Go make art, people. You're not getting kicked out of anywhere for us to all steward the land together. Go paint
Yeah, yeah,
maybe, or
yeah.
like write a book, or yeah,
Mm,
you're gonna be
yeah,
okay. The
you're
land
gonna be
actually
okay.
being taken better care of makes it better for everyone.
Yeah, and like,
Ah,
okay, so what? Like, and with proper land reform, it might mean that like you don't actually get to like like you might not buy a house that permanently belongs to you forever or whatever like that, but you would be able to live in a nice house that that you'll live in for your entire life, and then when you die, someone else will get to live there, and it's like we'll all have much more comfortable lives because of it. But yeah,
there's enough for
hmm,
everybody. All the systems that
there
say
is absolutely.
otherwise are
Mm,
manipulative, purposefully. Everybody
hmm,
could be
hmm.
housed tomorrow, yesterday.
We could. Yeah, we saw that a lot in COVID as well. We saw down here, I'm not sure what it was like over there, but there was a lot of like the government took over a couple of hotels and motels and housed all the homeless people in them. It's like, oh, so we could just do that.
That was an option this whole time? You mean that was an option this whole
Exactly,
time? Crazy.
Mm,
And then look at what
yeah.
happened to healthcare costs and crime rates and all sorts of things that then benefit
Mm,
everyone.
yeah.
It's not that complicated.
It's almost like it's a social good to have free, readily available housing, but who would
Almost
have thought?
like it. Who'd have,
Yeah,
who'd
almost
have
like that.
thunk it? But it's good. I'm
Yeah.
glad. We'll keep repeating
Mm.
this into the zeitgeist here.
Yeah.
There's more options. So cool. I'll put the information for Red Planet and your tattooing so people can check out on your Instagram places where they can go see a bunch of your art and
Yeah.
connect if they're in the area and want to get some ink as well.
Yeah.
However, I
Yeah,
can
yeah,
plug,
you can
I'm
come see
here
me.
to
Yeah, you
plug.
can come, and if you're in New Zealand, you can hit me up. My name's Timothy Russell. I work at the moment at a studio called Sacrament, which is in inner city Auckland. My Instagram is Timothy's Tattoos, so TimothyStattoos. You find me on Instagram, you see all the stuff I do, and yeah, if you're around, you can come see me. Yeah, there we go.
So fun to record. I just realized we didn't get to, there's a Tim and a Timothy within us, or an Anne and an Annie. So we'll have to save that
Mm,
for our next recording.
yeah, yeah. For next time, we'll grapple with the two wolves.
The two wolves in us all. Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you, listeners, for being you.
Yeah.